Ever wanted to be a part of a group? Well, you have come to the wrong place. Because today is all about some of the most dangerous and sinister cults to ever exist. From a cult that led to mass executions, to cults that just believe in pure violence, here are the top 10 scary cults you wouldn't want to be a part of. I'm your host Andrew, and let's get right into it. At number 10 spot, we have the true Russian Orthodox Church. The Penza Recluses were a doomsday cult that broke away from the Russian Orthodox Church and considered themselves to be the heavenly Jerusalem. They are founded by Pyotr Kuznetsov, and they believed that the world was going to end in May 2008. The cult members, numbering between 29 and 35, hold themselves up in a cave in the Penza region of Russia in November 2007, threatening mass suicide if authorities tried to intervene with them. Kuznetsov himself was not with the group, but was under police arrest. However, as time went on, some members began to emerge from the cave due to health problems and the collapse of the cave. 7 women were treated by emergency workers in March 2008, and 14 members emerged 3 days later. Kuznetsov, who realized his prediction was incorrect, was taken to the hospital and was later diagnosed with paranoia. In May 2008, the last 9 members of the cult emerged from the bunker due to the toxic fumes produced by 2 members who had died over the winter. After leaving the cave, most of the members left the village, but one family remained and continued to live without electricity or any sort of passport, waiting for the end of the world. So you can only imagine what they're up to today. Number 9, the Order of the Solar Temple. The Order of the Solar Temple was a cult and religious sect that claimed to have its roots in the ideals of the Knights Templar. The group was founded in 1984 by Joseph D. Mambro and Luc Joret in Geneva, Switzerland, and it was associated with a series of murders and mass suicides that took place in France, Switzerland, and Canada in 1994 and 1995. Some historians claim that the group was actually founded by French author Jacques Breyer, who established a sovereign order of the Solar Temple in 1952. In 1968, a schismatic order was renamed the Renewed Order of the Solar Temple, under the leadership of Julian Orgaz. Then in 1994, the baby son of one of the group's members was murdered, believed to be ordered by D. Mambro, who saw the child as the Antichrist. A series of mass suicides and murders followed, with inner circle members committing suicide with poison and others being killed by bullets or smothering. The victims were found in underground chapels and ski chapels and were dressed in the group's ceremonial robes. In several cases, victims appeared to have been drugged. In 1997, 5 members of the OTS committed suicide in a fire in Quebec. In the late 1990s, another attempt at a mass suicide was thwarted. Michel Tabachnik, a Swiss musician and conductor, was arrested as the leader of the group in the late 1990s and was later acquitted of charges of participation in a criminal organization and murder after 2 trials. All the suicides and murders related to this group occurred around dates that were significant to the group's belief, such as the equinoxes and solstices. The members of the group believe that they're, quote, leaving behind the hypocrisies and oppression of this world and moving on to Sirius. Number 8, Aum Shinrikyo. On a bright spring morning in Tokyo, millions of commuters boarded on one of the world's busiest underground systems. Little did they know, 5 bags filled with the deadly nerve agent sarin, developed by the Germans in the 1940s, had been left by members of the doomsday cult Aum Shinrikyo. The toxin struck down its victims within seconds, resulting in 13 fatalities and over 5,800 injuries in 5 coordinated attacks on 3 different train lines. Aum Shinrikyo means supreme truth and was founded in the 1980s as a spiritual group mixing Hindu, Buddhist, and apocalyptic Christian beliefs. Its leader, Shoko Asahara, declared himself to be Christ and attracted a large global following, including many young people from academically pressured backgrounds. However, as the cult became more paranoid and convinced of an impending apocalypse, it turned violent with numerous kidnappings, assaults, and even chemical and biological attacks. Members believed that the world was coming to an end, and everyone who wasn't a member was either going to hell unless he or she was killed by the cult. This is what ultimately led to the tragedy of the 1995 subway tragedy, and as a result, the cult's leader and several members were eventually executed for their crimes. Number 7, the Church of Euthanasia. Yes, this is a real thing, unfortunately. The Church of Euthanasia is a unique religious organization that was founded in 1992 in Boston, Massachusetts. This organization is considered to be the world's only anti-human religion, according to its founder, Chris Korda. The aim of the church is to restore balance between humans and other species on the planet. They believe that this can only be achieved through a massive reduction in human population which in turn will require a leap in human consciousness towards species awareness. The church is based on a single commandment, thou shalt not procreate, and has 4 main pillars: suicide, abortion, cannibalism, and sodomy. The church stresses the importance of popular reduction through voluntary means only and rejects murder and eugenics as means of achieving this reduction. This church is known for promoting its environmental views using unique methods such as sermons, act performances, art performances, public demonstrations, culture jamming, music, publicity stunts, and direct action. They believe that the modern world is so absurd that the means needed to spread their message must also be absurd. This approach is inspired by the Dadaist movement, which is known for its absurdist artistic expression. The Church of Euthanasia has faced opposition from anti-abortion Christian activists, which has made the organization infamous. Despite this, the church continues to spread its message through its popular slogans such as "Save the planet," "Kill yourself," and 6 billion humans can't be wrong. Can I get a facepalm? Number 6, the Church of the Lamb of God. The Church of the Lamb of God was started by Ervil Labaran in Mexico. Labaran convinced his followers that he received direct instructions from God, which included using an abandoned Mormon doctrine, blood atonement, that allows the execution of sinners to cleanse them of evil. Labaran had 51 children and 13 different wives, and over 2 decades amassed hundreds of followers who allegedly took the lives of more than 20 people on behalf of him and his orders. Mexican authorities then arrested him in 1979 and handed him over to the FBI, where he was charged and jailed for life in Utah. Although LeBaron passed away in prison in 1981, the fear people had about him still persisted for several years, as he left behind a hit list of people he believed were traitors. In the hump for our list, we have NXIVM. If you thought cults were a thing of the past, think again. NXIVM had more than 18,000 followers across North America until 2017, when members came forward to expose the abusive practices of a secret society within the group. Women were recruited under the false pretense that they were joining a sisterhood of sorts, but it ended up being an intimacy cult. A pyramid scheme existed within the group, with members called Vanguard at the top, masters who recruited other women to the secretive group, and the bottom were the newest recruits who were referred to as slaves. A former member recounted to the New York Times that in order to be admitted to the secret club, she had to give her master naked photos and other compromising documents that would be used as blackmail if she ever told anyone about the group's existence. In 2020, the leader was tried in court, where more than a dozen women came forward with statements regarding his psychological and intimate abuse. Victims were also as young as 15 years old. The leader was sentenced to life in prison, but in a court filing, his lawyers wrote, quote, "He is not sorry for his conduct or his choices." Number 4, People's Temple. Jim Jones started his own congregation known as the People's Temple of the Disciples of Christ in 1955. He proclaimed to have a vision of a nuclear attack and when it would occur, causing him to move his church from Indianapolis to San Francisco. There, Jones' ideologies of social activism were welcomed. However, what many didn't know was that Jones was said to have been using speed and intimately, physically, and emotionally abusing temple members. This kind of media coverage prompted Jones to convince about 1,000 of his followers to move away to Jonestown. Jonestown was a tactic to isolate his followers and gain complete control, and it would become a prison camp. Followers were publicly beaten, put in solitary confinement, and even put down with sedatives. On November 18, 1979, Jones was mad when he heard some of the members wanted to return to the States with California Congressman Leo Ryan. As Ryan was on his plane waiting to fly back to the States, he was executed as an order by Jones. Later that day, Jones ordered everyone to go to the pavilion. He urged everyone to drink a grape flavored aid mixed with cyanide, tranquilizers, and sedatives. People were pressured into drinking it in fear of being shot. Those who didn't want to drink it were forcibly injected with poison. Jones was found with what was believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound in his head following the mass of people that all drank the grape drink and took their lives. The Jonestown Massacre is known as one of the largest mass passings in American history, with a total of over 900 people passing away. Number 3, the Manson family. Following his prison release, longtime criminal Charles Manson decided he would leave for San Francisco to form the Manson family. Manson fit in well with the hippie scene in the city and fed women LSD, which then he asked them to join him. He and his 5 female followers traveled to Los Angeles, and Manson supposedly predicted an Armageddon and told his followers that they should stay with him to survive. Upon listening to the Beatles' White Album, Manson felt as though the band was speaking directly at him and warning him of a race war. On top of this, Manson also saw himself as the Messiah. His following grew as he drugged and intimately violated female followers. He also exploited them to recruit male followers as well, increasing his group by the hundreds. Manson manipulated young followers by discouraging them from free thinking and threatening violence if they did not comply. Then on August 9, 1969, an 8-month pregnant Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojciech Frykowski, and Stephen Parent were brutally executed by the Manson family members. The members used Tate's blood to write "pig" on the front door. The following night, grocery store owners Leonard and Rosemary LaBiana were tied up by Manson and stabbed. The couple's blood was used to write the word "helter skelter" and "rise" on the walls and refrigerator, and the word "war" was carved into the man's chest. In 1979, he was then sentenced to life in prison. Number 2, the Children of God. Initially called Teens for Christ, Children of God was founded in 1968 by David Berg in California. Attracting young runaways and hippies, David preached a kind of worship that combined the ways of Jesus Christ with the free love movement of the 60s. Members, who amounted to 15,000 people across the world at its peak, didn't work or go to school. The group didn't believe in the nuclear family, so children were grouped together and lived separately from their parents. In the late 1970s, the group became notorious for the intimate practices that one of David's own daughters later described as a religious prostitution. David coined the term flirty fishing, an intimate practice in which women would allegedly have intercourse with men to bring them into the cult. As he manipulated the cult with his sadistic practices, members started leaving the community, including the family of actor Joaquin Phoenix, who grew up in the Children of God commune. Former cult members began coming forward in the early 1990s, describing an environment that permitted and encouraged the physical and intimate abuse of young children. Although David passed away in 1994 while under FBI investigation, the Children of God cult continues to exist and now goes by the name Family International. Although the group claims that the horrific practices are a thing of the past, you can watch the whole documentary called Children of God on Netflix now and see the whole truth for yourself. Number 1, the Ant Hill Kids. Rochester was said to have belonged to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, living a life with no unhealthy foods, drug, or alcohol. He preached that the world would end on February 17, 1979, and then he formed the Ant Hill Kids group. He gained a small but loyal following through his charisma and looks. While hiking, Roch, who went by the name Moses, claimed to have received a message from God himself, prompting him to start a healthy living clinic in Quebec so that they could all be saved. He moved his followers to tents on a hill and made them build a town around it. He married his followers to each other to eventually void them, and later began being intimate with his followers. He then became a violent alcoholic and tortured his followers through drunken surgical operations and even cut off their limbs to prove he could heal them. He also forced his members to break their legs with sledgehammers, shoot one another's shoulders, and eat their own feces. He was then convicted of criminal negligence and spent 2 years in prison after causing the passing of a 2-year-old with a failed surgery attempt. Once he was released, he moved his followers to a different forest. He then continued with his same horrible acts, but was arrested 6 weeks later and issued a life sentence in prison. He was then executed by another inmate on February 26, 2011 at 63 years old. The inmate said he took his life because he didn't like the crimes he committed against children and women. Well, these are the top 10 scary cults you don't want to be a part of. What did you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts. But don't forget to like and subscribe to this video for some more scary content. I'm your host Andrew, and I hope you guys have a scary day.